YouTube. This is MissVindicat, and I am going to show you guys and tell you about what I did Saturday. And let me first show you this so you get a view. Saturday I went on a ship onto the North Sea, and that looked like this. See? It was really bumpy. Yeah. And I've got some pictures of the trip, and I will tell you about it. And yeah, let me just see. Let me start with this paper first. I went on this ship because I had to work Saturday. Actually, I'm still a bit tired. That's why you hear me thinking and I'm just not speaking. And that is in part because for this trip I had to wake up at 3:30 in the morning, which, you know, is just crazy. I'm not good at that, but I managed to do so. So let me show you what was going on. Here, the green thing is the Netherlands. Amsterdam is about here. Amsterdam, you know. Groningen, where I live, is about here. And there are these little islands here. And then here there's sea. This is all the North Sea. And what this is, it is a project by a couple of nature organizations. The World Nature Fund, I think that's the English translation. In Dutch it is the Wereld Natuurfonds, is one of them. And the thing is, there is an animal, an oyster, which is called the flat European oyster. And that is the oyster that used to live in the North Sea, like a lot of them. But they have almost all gone, and that is in part because the people who were fishing too much, but it is also in part because of illnesses that the animals got, and that is because of cold winters. So there were several circumstances which did not help, and now these flat European oysters are almost completely gone. And that is a shame because they formed an important part of the environment of the whole environment in the sea. So when the flat oysters disappeared, a lot of other animals and plants disappeared as well. You know, the whole ecosystem sort of fell apart. And nowadays there are some Japanese oysters. We got them, you know, from Asia, and but they're not like the native animals that used to live here, and the biodiversity is really low right now in the North Sea. So these nature organizations, they were interested in trying to bring these flat European oysters back into the North Sea. And that is a wild experiment because, well, they haven't done that before, and they don't know if they can, and they don't know if the oysters will survive. And also they hope that if they're able to do it and the oysters will survive, then maybe some of the other rich domain animals and plants will return to the North Sea as well. So that is the idea, and these nature organizations have been busy with this for the last couple of years, you know, planning and just thinking it all out. And then in May, last May, they brought a lot of European flat oysters that they actually got from Norway, where they apparently still live, and they transported them to the Netherlands, and then they put them in the North Sea. And they did that in 4 locations. Over here, next to Zealand, that's this part of the Netherlands. And then over here, and then also over here, and over here. And Saturday, the people from the nature organizations went to this place again, and they also went on Friday to check on these oysters. And they wanted to know if they were still alive, because they, it was an experiment, and they thought that they might have died, and B, if they would have grown a bit, and C, if they would start to, make babies. And then Saturday they asked a couple of journalists to join on this trip, and they had done part of the work on Friday, and that the results were good. They found out that the animals indeed were still alive, and that they had grown a bit, but they did not know about the getting babies part. So they would check that on Saturday, and they would also want it to show us, the journalists, so that we could report about it. So there were 6 of us, 2 from Arte, the German-French broadcast thing, and then 2 from a national broadcast thing on television here in the Netherlands, and then a colleague, a photographer, and me from the original newspaper in the north of the Netherlands, this part of the Netherlands where we work. So yeah, that's where we went. So I'm going to show you a couple of the pictures on here. So this was the boat that we went with. This one to the right was just a pretty small boat, and we were with a lot of people because there were several people of the nature organizations, and then there were these fishermen and us, the 6 journalists. So this picture I actually took at about, I think it was a bit after 5 o'clock in the morning. I had to get up at 3:30, then I took a shower and had a quick breakfast. Then I left my home at 4:15. Then I had to go on a bicycle to my car, which is about 10 minutes. So it was about 4:30. Then I got into a car and I drove towards this boat, which was about 45 minutes. So then I was there. I arrived at 5:15 in the morning. It was so early, guys. And I didn't even have coffee. And especially the driving part, it's really difficult to drive if you're very tired. But luckily I took a shower because I thought I have to be awake for the driving part. So a shower would help, and luckily it did. So this is the boat that we took. Then this is also a close-up of the boat. They had these in these big bags were like the shelves of animals that they had caught before, and they would throw that out. They were going to throw that out onto the bottom of the sea, because for the oysters they need something to grasp, to hold on to, and they can use, for example, if there are stones at the bottom of the sea, which there are at the part where they put them, but they can also use these. So we were going to bring these. And then here you can see the sky and the wonderful colors. Yeah, it was actually pretty nice. By this point I was already happy that I had woken up so early, because the driving part was behind me, and now I would just go on a boat and enjoy myself. Well, this was the sea. Here it looks pretty calm, but it really wasn't, although the first part was, but then it became pretty hectic. This is the side of the boat. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you guys about it. was the sun shining through. And actually I also got some nice pictures with the people on there, but I don't know, I don't want to show them in a YouTube video, even though I think I might be able to, since it was like a press trip, and you know, the pictures also appeared in our newspaper. But yeah, so here you can see a few people, but they're all, you know, just from the back. The one with the yellow hat is the photographer that I brought, and then there are all these people, you know, just filming. And actually here I'm sitting on top of the place where you steer the boat, the ship, because, you know, I didn't want to be in the way of all these cameramen, and from there I had a nice view. Oh, and then this was something that I really loved. Lego! They actually used these Lego stones to sort of explain what they were doing. Yeah, they made these artificial reef structures with a 3D printer, and that's the blue things, the blue parts, I think. And they put that on the bottom of the sea, and that would also, you know, the oysters could also grasp, you know, hold on to those structures, which was actually pretty clever, I think, although it was like a huge experiment. And then here, this was the most exciting part on Saturday. This is one of the oysters that they had caught the day before. And this is one of the researchers, and she has just opened this oyster, and she's going to look at it. And she was very happy when she saw this, because apparently this means that the oyster is reproducing. And well, yeah, she pointed it out to me, you know, how I could see it, what were the reproductive organs in here. But well, even looking at it now, you know, I don't see anything. I mean, I do see something, but I don't recognize anything, so I can't tell you what is what or how you can see it. But she was very happy. She said that she still had to examine this under a microscope, but that, as far as she could tell right now, this was a very good result. And here are some more of the oysters that she got. And then this was actually when we were on our way back. We passed this ship, and this is like a passenger ship that brings people from the mainland to Schiermonnikoog, which is one of the little islands that belongs to the Netherlands. I think I mentioned the islands in the travel agent roleplay video that I recently did about the Netherlands. I'll link that up some more in here. So it was nice to see this, because usually, I mean, I don't even go there as often as I want to these islands. But if I go to these islands, I'm always on this ship, you know, not on another ship, so that was nice. And then this is the last picture. I took this when we were back at the mainland again, and here you see some of the people. And yeah, that was the end of the day. And actually, what was really nice about this is that this boat belongs to a fisherman. A fisherman that it just uses it to fish during the week, but he is also helping them, and that is pretty special, because well, generally speaking, the fishermen and the nature preservers, they are enemies. They usually don't like each other, and the fishermen feel like whatever plan that the nature people come up with, it'll always cost them you know, spaces where they can't fish anymore. It will cost them money, and the nature people will feel like the fishermen don't care about nature at all, and they only think about money. And you can't, you know, talk to them or reason with them about how to preserve a bit of the ocean or how to help the ocean. And then actually in this case, the main researcher from the World Nature Fund, or well, whatever it is, you know, the famous one, she decided that she would try to do things differently, only work if she got the help of the fishermen, because the place where they leave the oysters in the sea, where they live them, the fishermen can't fish there, because otherwise they would destroy all these oysters. And so this researcher, this woman, she sort of got to know the fishermen, and she spoke to them, and she did not do this like the official way with official meetings and all kinds of stuff, but she just went to them and she talked to them and she helped them, and slowly she convinced them that they maybe should not have to be enemies, but that they could help each other out. And she explained to them that if this experiment will become a success, and well, it might be, because this was, the first time they went to check on them and it looked really promising, that if it becomes a success, then that might mean that the sea will get more diversity again, more fish, bigger fish, and that in the end is also good news for the fishermen, because they need the big fish. And already the fishermen were complaining, like they all remember that their father or their grandfather would usually tell stories about these really big fish that were living in the North Sea, and that nowadays if they go fishing they notice that a lot of those types of fish just aren't around anymore, and the types of fish that still are around are way smaller. So they do realize, like, it's not going very well. So they sort of realized that, well, maybe they should help. So then they talked about an area, and it took them a while to find a suitable area, but in the end they did find one, and now the oysters live there, and the fishermen don't just leave that area alone. And what I really liked on Saturday was that as soon as the one researcher, the one that you just saw, her hand in the picture, once that she said, like, hey, this is promising, I think they are reproducing, then the other researcher, she's the one who came up with this whole experiment. She immediately called the fisherman, the owner of the boat that we were all on, and she called and she said, hey, come here, come look. And then he came, and she said, I want to take a picture with you and with the oyster. And they took this picture together, the three of them, the fisherman, the nature preserver, and the oyster. And then the fisherman said, like, yes, we're getting babies. And then I felt like, oh, this is such a beautiful moment, because yes, they are getting babies, but it also felt a little bit like this can happen, like symbolic. This can happen if the nature people and the fishermen don't fight each other, but they just listen to each other and talk and hear, what the problems of the other one is, and how we can maybe find a middle way or a good way that will profit both parties. And that was really wonderful. And usually I'm a bit worried about climate change and the state of the world, and but this day, I mean, of course it's just this tiny project, but I don't know, it gave me hope. So that was actually really nice. Alright, then I've got to show one last thing to you, and that is this magazine. Let me just quietly get this. This is a magazine of the it might not be World Nature Fund, because it is WWF, the World's Fund. Well, I don't know. At least this is where she's from, now you all know. And this is their magazine, and it is in Dutch. And she gave it to me because there are all kinds of things in here, of course. is it. Here it says platte oester, and that means flat oyster. And here it says de terugkeer van de platte oester. That is the return of the flat oyster. So yeah, here it says that WWF recently placed the first flat oyster bank in more than 100 years back into the deep North Sea. And yeah, what it's deep, it's about 20 or 24 meters below sea level, and that is actually at the bottom of the sea. So yeah, that is, I don't know, is that deep? I'm not really, I don't know a lot about diving and stuff like that. So then here, there's this article about it, which pretty much tells you what I told you just now, but let me see. Here it says that in the wild, flat oysters can become 30 years old and more than 20 centimeters long. That is actually impressive. So then there is another image here. And this is a magazine, so I am allowed to show you this, right? Which is actually fun, because, or fun, it's nice, because this is the woman who started the experiment. So she was on the ship, and she's the one, you know, that called the fishermen and say, let's go on a picture together. So yeah, now you did see her, and I think it's okay because this is just a public magazine, so she obviously okayed this picture. So let me see what else is in here. This is funny. This is like the page of the number of the page, and it says Panda on all pages. I have no idea why. So yeah, that is it already. So yeah, that was my Saturday.